On December the 1st, 2018, security cameras in the heart of Auckland, New Zealand, captured a young woman smiling as she walked out of a bar with a man she had met just hours earlier. At the time, nothing seemed unusual. No one knew those images would become the last recorded moments of Grace Millane's life. Grace was only 22 years old, in the middle of a solo backpacking journey around the world. The man walking beside her was Jesse Kempson, a name that would soon be tied to one of New Zealand's most disturbing murder cases. Grace Millane was born in England in 1996 and raised in a close, loving family. She was described by friends as warm, optimistic, and adventurous, someone who embraced life fully and trusted easily. In late 2018, Grace set off on a solo backpacking trip across New Zealand, documenting her journey through messages and social media. For Grace, this trip symbolized freedom, independence, and the excitement of exploring the world before settling into adulthood. She stayed in hostels, met fellow travelers, and remained in frequent contact with her family. There were no warning signs, no red flags, nothing to suggest she was in danger. December the 1st was meant to be an ordinary day, except it was also the day before Grace's 22nd birthday. That same day, Grace arranged to meet Jesse Kempson, a 26-year-old local man she had matched with on Tinder. Kempson appeared ordinary, well-spoken, clean-cut, and friendly. To Grace, he seemed like just another date during her travels. Unbeknownst to her, Kempson had a deeply troubling history, one that would only come to light after her death. At 5:37 p.m., Grace left her hostel to meet Jesse. CCTV shows her walking confidently through central Auckland. Jesse, meanwhile, had already been drinking heavily before the date even began. They met in a busy public area, a place filled with people, noise, and light. Grace likely felt safe. After all, meeting in public is what many women are advised to do when meeting someone new. They began their evening at a bar, talking and drinking. Over the next few hours, they moved between multiple bars, continuing to consume alcohol. Witnesses and surveillance footage later confirmed that nothing appeared unusual. The two seemed to be getting along well. At 7:15 p.m., they visited a Mexican bar. Around 8:30 p.m., they moved to another venue, the Blue Stone Room. At 8:54 p.m., cameras recorded them sharing their first kiss. Shortly after that kiss, Jesse went to the bathroom. Grace remained at the table and sent a message to a friend, a message that would later haunt those who read it. She wrote that the date was going amazingly well and that she felt an instant connection with Jesse. It was the last message Grace Millane ever sent. Moments later, the two left the bar together and headed toward Jesse's accommodation, a room at the City Life Hotel in downtown Auckland. Grace walked willingly beside him, unaware that she was heading toward her death. What happened inside that hotel room would become the center of intense investigation and courtroom debate. Sometime during the night of December the 1st into the early hours of December 2nd, Grace Millane was killed by manual strangulation. A pathologist would later determine that she died from asphyxia, with bruising on her arms and chest, consistent with being restrained. Grace did not die instantly. Strangulation requires sustained pressure. She would have struggled. She would have known she was in danger. Jesse Kempson would later claim her death was an accident during consensual sexual activity. However, the evidence would tell a far darker story. December 2nd arrived, Grace's birthday. Her phone began receiving messages from friends and family wishing her well. Every message went unanswered. At 8 a.m., CCTV footage shows Jesse alone in the hotel elevator. He glances suspiciously toward the camera. Grace is not with him. This was not a man going to buy breakfast for his date. This was a man who had already killed and was now preparing to erase every trace of what he had done. Within minutes, Jesse was seen walking through Auckland on what investigators would later describe as one of the most disturbing shopping trips imaginable. He first visited a store and purchased a large suitcase. Surveillance footage captured him checking its dimensions, width, depth, and height, ensuring it was big enough to hold a human body. He then went to another store and purchased cleaning supplies, items specifically suited for removing biological evidence. All of these purchases were made using Grace Millane's credit card. After returning to the hotel room, Jesse remained inside for several hours. Grace's body was still there. What Jesse did next shocked investigators and the public alike. With Grace's body lying lifeless in his hotel room, Jesse left to meet another woman he had arranged to see through Tinder. He wore the same clothes he had worn the night before, clothes he may have been wearing when Grace was killed. During the date, Jesse allegedly made disturbing comments, including discussing how someone might hide a dead body from police. Alarmed, the woman ended the date early and left. Her instincts may have saved her life. Later that evening, CCTV captured Jesse returning to the hotel, carrying a carpet cleaner and multiple bottles of cleaning solution. For over 30 minutes, he worked inside the room, attempting to remove any trace of Grace's presence. But blood leaves stains that cannot be fully erased, and cameras leave records that cannot be undone. That night, Jesse was seen pushing a trolley loaded with luggage into the elevator. Among the bags was the suitcase he had purchased earlier. It was so heavy he could not lift it alone. Inside was Grace Millane's body. In the early hours of the morning, Jesse Kempson loaded the heavy suitcase into a rental car he had arranged earlier that day. CCTV footage showed him moving carefully, deliberately, as if every step had been rehearsed in his mind. He did not rush. He did not panic. This was not the behavior of someone who had experienced a tragic accident. In the days that followed, Jesse drove the rental car out of the city toward the Waitakere Ranges, a vast area of dense bushland on the outskirts of Auckland. It was remote, quiet, and rarely traveled, a place he believed no one would ever search. On the morning of December 3rd, Jesse purchased a shovel. Later, he returned to the forest, dug a shallow grave, and buried the suitcase containing Grace Millane's body beneath the soil. Afterward, he discarded personal items, threw away trash bags, and took the rental car to be professionally cleaned, paying special attention to the trunk where the suitcase had been stored. By the time he returned the car, Jesse believed he had erased Grace from existence. He was wrong. For Grace's family and friends, the days following her disappearance were filled with confusion and growing dread. Grace had missed her birthday. She had not replied to messages. She had not posted online. This was completely out of character. On December 5, 2018, Grace Millane was officially reported missing to Auckland police. Her father, David Millane, flew from the UK to New Zealand and made an emotional public appeal, pleading for information about his daughter's whereabouts. As media coverage intensified, Jesse Kempson continued his daily life, walking freely through the city, fully aware that Grace's family was desperately searching for her. Police began reconstructing Grace's final days, using surveillance footage, phone records, and financial transactions. Slowly, a picture emerged. They discovered that Grace had been on a Tinder date with a man on the night she disappeared. Hours of CCTV footage across central Auckland were reviewed. Eventually, investigators identified the man seen with Grace and tracked him to the City Life Hotel. That man was Jesse Kempson. On the afternoon of December 5th, police arrived at the hotel to speak with him. As officers entered the lobby, Jesse noticed them. For a brief moment he attempted to casually walk away, hoping to blend into the crowd. He did not get far. Police stopped him and took him in for questioning. Inside the interrogation room, Jesse appeared calm. He spoke willingly, recounting his date with Grace in detail, at least at first. He claimed that everything had gone well. He said they had consensual sex. He insisted that Grace had left the hotel room alive. But almost immediately his story began to unravel. When confronted with surveillance footage showing him taking unusual routes through the city, Jesse offered weak explanations. When asked about his movements after Grace's disappearance, he hesitated, contradicted himself, and became visibly uncomfortable. Police pressed harder. They reminded him that Grace might still be alive, or she might be dead. The pressure was mounting. As investigators continued their work, the evidence against Jesse became overwhelming. They discovered purchases of a suitcase and cleaning products made using Grace's credit card, GPS and cell phone data, placing Jesse and Grace together, CCTV footage documenting Jesse's movements before and after the murder, traces of Grace's blood found in the hotel room. Every attempt Jesse made to cover his tracks had left behind a digital footprint. The truth was closing in. On December 7th, Jesse was interviewed again. This time, there was no room left for lies. Faced with undeniable evidence, Jesse finally confessed to what he had done after Grace's death. He admitted to buying the suitcase, cleaning the room, renting the car, and burying her body in the way to Kerry Ranges. However, he continued to deny responsibility for her death itself. Instead, Jesse introduced what would later become known as the 50 Shades of Grey defense. He claimed that Grace had asked to engage in rough, consensual sexual activity involving restraint and strangulation, and that he had fallen asleep only to wake up and find her dead. According to Jesse, her death was an accident. Police were not convinced. Using information from Jesse's confession, police searched the White Ranges. On December 9th, in 2018, Grace Millane's body was found buried in the bush, zipped inside the suitcase. A post-mortem examination revealed the truth Jesse could no longer hide. Grace had been manually strangled. She had bruising on her arms and chest, consistent with being pinned down. Her injuries showed she had fought for her life. This was not an accident. This was murder. Jesse Kempson was charged with murder and stood trial in the High Court of New Zealand. Under New Zealand law, murder does not require proof of premeditation, only that the accused caused the victim's death intentionally or with reckless disregard for life. The defense argued that Grace had consented to dangerous sexual behavior, and that her death was the prosecution, focused on the facts. Strangulation requires sustained force. Jesse's actions after her death demonstrated clear consciousness of guilt. The jury did not accept Jesse's explanation. On February 21, 2020, Jesse Kempson was found guilty of murder. He was sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum non-parole period of 17 years. Following the trial, 2 additional women came forward, accusing Jesse of violent sexual assaults after meeting him on Tinder. He was convicted on those charges as well, adding 11 more years to his sentence. Grace Millane's death sent shockwaves around the world. Her family was forced to endure unimaginable loss, a young life stolen during what was meant to be an adventure. Her case sparked global conversations about violence against women, the dangers of online dating, the misuse of consent as a legal shield for abuse. Grace Millane did not die because she trusted too much. She did not die because of a mistake she made. She died because she encountered a man who chose violence and then chose to hide it. Her story remains a stark reminder that danger does not always look dangerous, and that some of the most horrific crimes begin with what appears to be an ordinary night.